Maybe you're in a market where big PE companies have come in, they bought up 1, 2, 20 of the companies that you're competing against. And it seems really hard to move the needle. And it's just really hard to stand out when there's so much noise. You're not alone for feeling that way. Recently, I was listening to a talk by a guy named Seth Godin. Seth is one of the most brilliant people with marketing alive today. And he has this really interesting way of thinking about it. So think about it this way, because it was inspiring for me to hear about it. Okay. Imagine you're a piano teacher and you're trying to get piano students, you're trying to do all these things. Your default response is, what makes you different than the competition? What makes you different than the other companies or the other piano teachers? And you could say, well, you're better, you have better training, or you use better pianos or whatever, right? In reality, that's all about you. Like, that's about you thinking about yourself. But for customers, it doesn't help them make a choice. So Seth Godin's approach is to say, help the customer make a decision of what's right for them. The example he uses then is, imagine you have an axis. You can have as many of these axes as you want, but for him, he likes to default to 2. And you can label these axes however you want, and you can pick the endpoints. So for instance, in the case of a piano teacher, one end of the axis can be cheap and the other end of the axis can be expensive, right? So that could be your range of motion for that particular axis. But the other axis could be something like, you have to be really fun, really casual, really easygoing. But the other one, maybe it's like a really strict, like Eastern European style sort of instruction. And what happens is when you start interacting with customers, you can find out what they want and what they're looking for and help them find the best solution. So if somebody's coming to you, they're wanting Eastern European sort of instruction and they're wanting it to be cheap, that might not you. You might say you're really fun, you're really informal, but you're also really expensive when you teach piano. So you can unashamedly say, well, that's not you, that's not who you are, but you can help find solutions for your customer that does meet their need. Now, the thing that this does is actually a couple things. One, this is going to keep companies from having to compete over the same reasons for everything else. Because otherwise, so many home service companies are just going to compete on price. They're going to use the same sales lines. They're going to do the same training, and all of them are going to focus on, well, we're cheaper, or we have better warranties, or better training, or whatever. And at some point, all of those things sound like the exact same thing. It's like everyone's trying to say that they're the expensive Eastern European piano instructor. But if you find an opportunity to actually find something else that's painful for your customers and find a way to position yourself in that way, you will have an infinitely better chance of cutting through the noise and providing that value, even if that value is that they do not become your customer. Because it is far more helpful to help your customer make a good decision than it is for you to engage business with someone who isn't your target, who isn't your customer, who's going to hurt your operations or your morale or your culture in more complicated ways that you can probably comfortably deal with. So instead of trying to be all things for everyone, instead of trying to do exactly what everyone else is doing, focus on your market, focus on where you actually can solve problems for the customer, not for you. Don't focus on you, focus on your customer's perspective, and think about, how do you stand out in a meaningful way? You can pick whatever number of axes you want, pick whatever sort of values you want, but find a way to meet a need that is not currently being met and solve it better than anyone else can. Hey, I'm Ryan. If you're trying to grow your business, follow this page for more tips.